You're not distracted. Your brain is being surgically dismantled one swipe at a time. There's a specific term for what's happening to you, and it's not just dopamine addiction. Neuroscientists call it cognitive schema erosion. Your brain builds schemas, complex mental frameworks that let you understand novels, follow arguments, hold contradictions in your mind simultaneously. These schemas are like neural scaffolding. They take years to build, decades actually. Every time you read a book cover to cover, every time you follow a 2-hour conversation, every time you sit with a difficult emotion instead of numbing it, you're strengthening that scaffolding. I watched this happen to someone close to me, brilliant person, could talk for hours about philosophy, about history, about the subtle emotional beats in films most people miss entirely. Then something shifted around 2021. Conversations became shorter. Mid-sentence, I'd see her eyes glaze over, that familiar pull toward her pocket. At first I thought she was bored with me, maybe I was talking too much, but then I noticed she was doing it during movies, during her own stories. The mechanism is brutally simple. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for complex thought, requires sustained attention to function properly. It needs 15 to 23 minutes of uninterrupted focus to fully activate. This isn't motivational psychology. This is measurable brain activity. fMRI studies from Stanford's Attention Lab show that when you switch contexts before that 23-minute threshold, your prefrontal cortex never fully comes online. You're operating on your limbic system, the emotional, reactive, survival-oriented part of your brain. That's fine for avoiding predators. It's catastrophic for understanding subtext, building arguments, or creating anything original. Sound familiar? That feeling when you sit down to read and your eyes move across the words but nothing registers. That's not you being lazy. That's schema erosion in real time. Your brain literally cannot construct the mental model required to follow the narrative because the neural pathways have been pruned away from disuse. Neuroscientist Dr. Marianne Wolf calls this skim mode. Your brain defaults to skimming everything now, even when you desperately want to go deep. Because the infrastructure for depth no longer exists. Let me be specific about what you've lost. You used to be able to hold multiple perspectives in your head simultaneously. Cognitive flexibility. The ability to think from someone else's point of view while maintaining your own, to see the validity in an argument you disagree with, to sit with paradox without needing immediate resolution. That requires working memory, and working memory requires sustained neural activation. But context switching collapses working memory. Every time you swipe, your brain dumps its temporary storage to make room for new input. You're overwriting the file before it saves. The dopamine angle is real, but it's almost a distraction from the deeper damage. Yes, you're chasing microhits of novelty. Yes, your baseline dopamine is dysregulated, but the schema erosion is worse because it's structural. Dopamine regulation can recover in weeks. Neural pathways take months or years to rebuild, and only if you actually stop the behavior that destroyed them. Most people don't. Because here's the trap: the less capable you become of deep thought, the more intolerable deep thought feels. It's not just hard, it's physically uncomfortable. Your brain interprets the demand for sustained focus as a threat. This is called cognitive load intolerance. Your brain has become sensitized to the discomfort of thinking, not thinking hard, just thinking at all beyond surface level. Dr. Gloria Mark at UC Irvine tracked knowledge workers and found that after just 1 week of constant digital interruption, participants showed measurable increases in stress hormones when asked to focus for more than 12 minutes. 12 minutes. That's less than one episode of a sitcom. Your body is now producing cortisol in response to the thing that used to bring you the deepest satisfaction: losing yourself in a problem, a book, a project. And nobody's talking about the memory collapse. You're not just forgetting things, your brain has stopped encoding them properly in the first place. Memory consolidation requires 2 stages: encoding and transfer to long-term storage. Both require uninterrupted neural processes. When you're context switching every 30 seconds, your hippocampus never gets the signal to move short-term memories into long-term storage. You experience something, but it doesn't stick. This is why you can scroll for 40 minutes and have zero recollection of what you saw, not because the content was forgettable, because your brain never saved it. You're living in perpetual short-term memory. Here's what makes this permanent if you don't intervene: neuroplasticity works both ways. The famous phrase is neurons that fire together wire together, but the equally true inverse is neurons that don't fire together don't survive together. Your brain prunes unused pathways aggressively, especially after age 25. Every day you spend in shallow attention mode, your brain is cutting away the connections that enable deep attention mode, not metaphorically, literally, synaptic pruning. Use it or lose it is not a metaphor when it comes to neural architecture. This isn't about willpower anymore. The architecture of your mind has been rewritten. By now you're probably thinking about the last time you finished a book. Or tried to. When was it? How long did it take? Did you enjoy it or did it feel like work? Here's the test. Can you summarize the plot of the last book you read in 3 sentences? Can you name the main character's motivation? If you can't, that's not because you're stupid. It's because your comprehension architecture has been dismantled. You extracted the words but couldn't build the world. And before you say you never liked reading anyway, ask yourself, was that always true? But here's the twist nobody sees coming. The anxiety you feel isn't from life getting harder. It's from your cognitive capacity shrinking while your problems stay the same size. You're trying to solve adult problems with a brain that's been trained to operate at the level of a goldfish. Relationships require holding multiple emotional threads simultaneously. Your career requires strategic thinking across months or years. Your own mental health requires the ability to observe your patterns without immediately reacting. All of that is complex cognition. All of that requires schemas. The person I mentioned earlier, the one who lost the ability to finish her own stories, she didn't realize what had happened until she tried to write. She'd been working on something for years before all this, a personal essay, nothing fancy, just trying to organize her thoughts about a difficult period in her life. She sat down one Saturday determined to finish it. 6 hours later, she had written one paragraph. She kept getting distracted, yes, but it was deeper than that. She told me she couldn't hold the emotional arc in her head. So she stopped not writing, she stopped scrolling, complete digital fast for 2 weeks, no short-form content, no infinite feeds. She still used her phone for communication, but every app with an algorithm was deleted. She told me the first 4 days were genuinely hellish, not hard, hellish. She described it as withdrawal and she wasn't being dramatic, headaches, irritability. The obsessive thoughts about what she might be missing. But here's what she didn't expect. The boredom was worse than the cravings. She'd sit on her couch with nothing to do and her brain would scream at her. Day 8, something shifted. She picked up a book and read for an hour, not because it was easy, it wasn't, but because she could feel her brain starting to remember how, like a muscle that had atrophied, learning to contract again. By week 3, she finished the essay. It wasn't perfect, but it was complete. She could hold the entire structure in her mind while she worked. Beginning, middle, end, theme, evidence, conclusion. The scaffolding was rebuilding itself. She told me the most shocking part was realizing how much she'd lost without noticing. The research backs this up. Dr. Larry Rosen at California State University ran an experiment where heavy social media users went on a 7-day digital detox. By day 5, their sustained attention scores increased by 41%. 41% cognitive capacity recovered in 5 days. But here's the critical finding. The gains disappeared within 72 hours of returning to their previous usage. The pathways rebuild, but they're fragile. You have to protect them. This isn't a detox you do once. It's a permanent behavioral change, or the damage returns immediately. So what do you actually do? First, you have to accept that moderation doesn't work here. You cannot casually browse short-form content the same way you can't casually have 1 cigarette a day. The mechanism is too powerful. The algorithm is too good. 5 minutes turns into 50, and 50 minutes of context switching is enough to dismantle your focus for the entire day. You need hard boundaries, not aspirational boundaries. Actual enforceable barriers. Delete the apps, not just log out. Delete if you're serious about recovering your mind. You remove the access point. Second, you have to relearn how to be bored. Boredom is not empty time. Boredom is your default mode network activating. It's your brain making connections between ideas, consolidating memories, processing emotions, generating creative insights. All the things that make you happen in the gaps between stimulation. When you eliminate all gaps, you eliminate the self, so you sit with it. You feel the discomfort. You let your brain scream for input and you give it nothing except reality. Look out a window, feel your body in the chair. Let thoughts arise without immediately reacting to them. And third, you rebuild deliberately. You don't just abstain. You actively practice sustained attention. Start with 10 minutes. Read something dense. Work on something complex. Let your brain struggle. The discomfort you feel is literally your neural pathways trying to reactivate. That's good pain. That's growth pain. You're supposed to feel it. Every day you sustain focus for longer than your brain wants to, you're laying down new myelin, strengthening connections, rebuilding the architecture. In 3 months, you'll be a different person. Not because you became disciplined, because you stopped damaging yourself and gave your brain permission to heal. The question isn't if you can fix this, it's whether you'll recognize yourself once you do. If the video resonated with you, hit subscribe. Uncomfortable Truths releases new videos every day on personal finance, relationships, mindset, and productivity, and more. Turn on notifications so you never miss one. The truth is uncomfortable, but it's always worth it.